Hello, children. Let us continue the remaining part of your history, chapter number 3. The name of the topic is the Delhi Sultans. Boys, in the discussion of our previous day's class, we have learned the part of the chapter a closer look administration and consolidation under the Khaljis and Tughlaqs. So, in this very part of the chapter, towards the end of this part of the chapter, we learn especially Iltutmish how he favored their special slaves which purchased for military service called Vandagan in Persian. They were carefully trained to man some of the most important political offices in the kingdom. Since they were totally dependent upon their master, that means those slaves, as they were totally dependent on their owner, so the Sultan could trust and rely upon them. So the Sultan also, he could believe and depend on them. Okay, so we have discussed up to here in our previous day's class. So let us continue the remaining part of this chapter. The Khaljis in Tughlaqs continued to use Bandagan and also raised people of humble birth who were often their clients to high political positions. Here, the Khaljis and Tughlaqs, they continued in order to use Bandagan. Bandagan means it is a Persian word which is used for special slab, and also they raised people of humble birth who were often their clients. Client means client is a, see here in the left margin of this page, boys. It has given a client is someone who is under the protection of another. That means a dependent or hanger on. So who were often their clients to high political positions. They were appointed as generals and governors. So they were here appointed as generals and governors. However, this also introduced an element of political instability. So, however, this also introduced here an element of political instability. Instability means the state of being unstable here. Okay, slaves and clients were loyal to their masters and patrons. So, but not to their hires. See here, slaves and clients, they were loyal. Here means showing constant support, okay, to their masters and patrons. Patrons means a person who gives financial or other support to a person, but not to their hires. New sultans had their own servants. New sultan, they have their own servants. As a result, the accession of a new monarch often show conflict between the old and the new nobility. And you see, as new sultans, they had their own servants. That is why what happened? The accession. Accession means that is attainment, okay, of a new monarch. Monarch means a king. Often show conflict between the old and the new nobility. So there was a conflict. There was conflict between the old and the new nobility. Nobility means being noble in character. The patronage of these humble people by the Delhi Sultans also shocked many elites and the authors of Persian Tawariq criticized the Delhi Sultans for appointing the low and baseborn to high offices. Here the patronage. Here patronage means the support given by a patron. So patronage of these humble people by the Delhi Sultan also shocked. Okay, shocked means the to feel surprised. Okay, or shocked. Here they feel shocked. Many elites means select. Okay, select here. And the authors of Persian Tawariq criticized the Delhi Sultans. So Persian Tawariq, they also criticize about the Delhi Sultans for appointing the low and base-born to high offices. When these low-birth people were appointed, okay, by the Delhi Sultans, so they used to criticize here, who have been appointed for high offices. Like the earlier sultans, the Khalji and Tughlaq monarchs appointed military commanders as governors of territories of varying sizes. Like as that means that earlier sultans, the Khalji and Tughlaq monarchs also, they appointed many commanders as governors of territories of different sizes. These lands were called Ikta and their holder was called Iktadar or Mukti. Here you see uh, these lands were called here the lands where that means they appointed military commanders as governors. So that areas, that lands were called Ikta and their holder who is holding that was called Iktadar or Mukti. The duty of Muktis was to lead military campaigns and maintain law and order in their iktas. So see here what was the function of these Muktis. The duty of the Muktis was to lead military campaigns and to maintain law and order in their iktas. In exchange for their military services, the Muktis collected the revenues of their assignments as salary. Here, what we find in exchange for their military services, the Muktis they used to collect the revenues of their assignments as salary. They used to collect the income, okay, income of their assignments as salary. They collected that income to use it as their salary. They also paid their soldiers from these revenues. So they used to pay to their soldiers from the collected revenues. Control over Muktis was most effective if their office was not inheritable and if they were assigned iktas for a short period of time before being shifted. Here, control over these muktis, it was most effective if their offices was inheritable. Inheritable means offices was not inheritable. Offices not inheritable means not capable of being inherited. Okay, and if they were assigned, here assignments here forced. Okay, here it does for a short period of time before being shifted. These harsh conditions of service were rigorously imposed during Tughlaq So this unpleasant or rough, okay, here these unpleasant or rough conditions of service were rigorously means in an extremely okay thorough and careful way imposed means forced during the reigns of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq, during the ruling of Alauddin Khilji and Muhammad Tughlaq. Accountants were appointed by the state to check the amount of revenue collected by muktis. So there that means they used to appointed accountants by the state in order to check the amount of revenue which were collected by the muktis. Care was taken that the mukti collected only the taxes prescribed by the state and that he kept the required number of soldiers. And there was care for what? Care was taken that those mukti collected only the taxes which are prescribed by the state and that he kept the required number of soldiers also. It should not exceed. Okay. As the Delhi Sultans brought the hinterland of the cities under their control, they forced the landed chieftains, the Samanta aristocrats, and rich landlords to accept their authority. As the Delhi Sultans brought the hinterland of cities. Okay, hinterland, that means we have got through about this hinterland boys. So this hinterland of the cities under their control as it was brought, they forced the landed chieftains here, okay, the Samanta aristocrats and rich landlords. Okay, landlords means a man who rent out land, a building, etc., to accept their authority under Alauddin Khalji. The state brought the assessment and collection of land revenue under its own control. So, as Alauddin Khalji was ruling there, under Alauddin Khalji, the state brought the assessment. Okay, assessment means evaluation, the evaluation and collection of land revenue. It was under its own control. The rights of the local chieftains to levy taxes were cancelled and they were also forced to pay taxes. So, under his control, you see the rights of the local chieftains, okay, local leader who was there to levy taxes. Levy means to impose taxes. It was cancelled and they were also forced to pay taxes. The Sultan's administrators measured the land and kept careful accounts. So, in such condition, the Sultan's administrator, they used to measure the land and used to keep careful accounts. Some of the old chieftains and landlords served the Sultanate as revenue collectors and assessors. There, what happened? Some of the chieftain or landlords, what they have done, they used to serve the Sultan as revenue collectors. They used to collect the revenue from people and assessors. Assessors means a person who evaluates the quality of a person or thing. Okay, there were three types of taxes. So at the time, you see there were three types of taxes which was imposed on cultivation called kharaj and amounting to about 50% of the peasant's produce. Come and mark all these three types of taxes, boys. So the first one was, it was on cultivation called kharaj and amounting to about 50% of the peasant's produce. Then the second one is on cattle, and third one is on houses. So these are the three you see taxes, and what that means it was enforced. It is important to remember that large parts of the subcontinent remained outside the control of the Delhi Sultans. So here it is important, boys, to remember that large areas of the subcontinent it remained outside the control of Delhi Sultans. It was difficult to control distant provinces like Bengal from Delhi, and soon after annexing southern India. So it was at the time it was difficult to control distant provinces. Okay, the provinces means region within a country. So to control those areas, okay, distant areas or provinces like Bengal from Delhi, and soon after annexing, okay, southern India, the entire region became independent. At the time, what happened? Here, annexing means add as an extra or subordinate, okay, part. So there is it was added, okay, annexing the southern India also. The center region became independent at the time. Even in the Gangetic plain, there were forested areas that Sultanate forces could not penetrate. So even there was what? Some areas which were full of forest. That areas the Sultanate forces they could not go into. Local chieftains established their rule in these regions. So in those areas, local leaders they used to establish their rule in that part. Sometimes rulers like Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq could force their control in these areas, but only for a short duration. There you see, sometimes these rulers like Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq, they could force their control in those areas, but that one was not long last. Okay, it was for a short period, short duration. Here is under you see, boys, when it has given about the chieftains and their fortifications, you get through this. Then the Mongols under Genghis Khan invaded Transoxiana in northeast Iran in 1219, and the Delhi Sultanate faced their onslaught soon after. The Mongols, the Mongolian under Genghis Khan invaded, that means invaded means enter, okay, to self-subjugated or occupy that areas. So their Transoxiana in northeast Iran in 1219, and the Delhi Sultanate faced their onslaught soon after. There what happened? Delhi Sultanate he faced their onslaught. Onslaught means a fires or destruction attacks soon after. Mongol attacks on the Delhi Sultanate increased during the reign of Alauddin Khalji and in the early years of Muhammad Tughlaq's rule. So Mongol the attacks on the Delhi Sultanate it increased. Okay, Delhi Sultanate increased during the rule of Alauddin Khalji and in the early years of Muhammad Tughlaq as he was ruling there. This forced the two rulers to mobilize a large standing army in Delhi, which posed a huge administrative challenge. So these force both the two rulers in order to mobilize. Mobilize means prepare and organize for active service, okay, of a large standing army in Delhi, which posed a huge administrative challenge there. Let us see how the two sultans dealt with this. Okay, see here in the next page it has given boys Alauddin Khalji and Muhammad Tughlaq. Okay, how they dealt with this. You just get through this, read this one. Now come to the page number 42. In this list of Muhammad Tughlaq's failures, we sometimes forget that for the first time in the history of the Sultanate, a Delhi Sultan planned a campaign to capture Mongol territory. Here in this list, the list which has given in our previous page, there we find what? This list of Muhammad Tughlaq's failures. We sometimes forget that for the first time in the history of the Sultanate, a Delhi Sultan planned a campaign to capture Mongol territory, Mongols areas. Unlike Alauddin's defensive measures, Muhammad Tughlaq's measures were conceived as a part of a military offensive against the Mongols. So, unlike Aladdin's defensive means used to defend measures, Muhammad Tughlaq's measures were created as a part of military upset against the Mongols. The Sultanate in the 15th and 16th centuries. Take a look at table 1 again, boys. You will notice that, okay, take a look at table 1 again. There you will notice that after the Tughlaqs, the Said and Lodi dynasties ruled from Delhi and Agra until 1526. There in table 1, here you will notice that after the Tughlaqs, the Said and Lodi dynasties, they ruled from Delhi and Agra till 1526. By then, Jaunpur, Bengal, Malwa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and the entire South India had independent rulers who established flourishing states and prosperous capitals. Here, by then, that means from 1526, we find there Jaunpur, Bengal, Malwa, Gujarat, Rajasthan, and the entire South India, they had independent rulers who established flourishing. Flourishing means to grow luxuriantly. Okay, flourishing states and prosperous capitals. Okay, and what they have done, they these rulers established to grow luxuriantly states and favorable capitals. This was also the period which saw the emergence of new ruling groups like the Afghans and the Rajputs. So this was also the period which saw the process of becoming visible. Okay, emergence means process of becoming visible. Here emergence of new ruling groups like the Afghans and Rajputs. We find here what this period it shows the emergence, the existence of new ruling groups such as Afghans and the Rajputs. Some of the states established in this period were small but powerful and extremely well administered. So some of the states it established in this period They were small but powerful and extremely well administered. Sher Shah Suri started his career as the manager of a small territory for his uncle in Bihar and eventually challenged and defeated the Mughal Emperor Humayun. So Sher Shah Suri, he started his career. He started his career in between 1540 and 1545. So he started his career as a manager of small territory for his uncle who was then there in Bihar, and eventually means, and in the end challenged and defeated the Mughal Emperor Humayun. So eventually you see in the end challenged and defeated the Mughal Emperor Humayun. Sher Shah captured Delhi and established his own dynasty. That Sher Shah, he captured Delhi and he established his own dynasty. Although the Suri dynasty ruled for only 15 years, that is 1540 to 1555, it introduced an administration that borrowed elements from Alauddin Khalji and made them more efficient. Though it was very short period, boys, the ruling period of Suri dynasty, it was just for 15 years, but it introduced an administration which borrowed elements from Alauddin Khalji and made them more efficient. Sher Shah's administration became the model followed by the great Emperor Akbar in 1556 to 1605. Akbar, as he was ruling there, so the Sher Shah's administration, it became the model, okay, which was followed by Emperor Akbar when he consolidated the Mughal Empire. At the time when see Akbar, he consolidated means make physically solid the Mughal Empire. So here is the end of the chapter. Thank you, boys.